Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Laurie, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Laurie Palau. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to make sure that you guys all know about our tip of the week. We just launched that like a couple weeks ago. If you are new to our show, we've been releasing new episodes weekly for the past 7 years. And we've been asked by a lot of our listeners, do you guys do any kind of like short form little tidbits to kind of help us get motivated throughout the week? And so we've recently just launched our tip of the week episode, which drops on Mondays. Our regular episodes drop on Thursdays. So as long as you're subscribed to our show, you get both episodes. So just bear that in mind. Love to know your thoughts and feedback on that. It's brand new to us. If you have questions that you want to submit, or maybe a tip that you want to submit, there's a link in the show notes for you to go ahead and do that. And as always, share your feedback because we love hearing what you want to learn about. And speaking of which, I have a great guest for you today. If you're an OG, she's been on our show before. She's my fellow organizer from back in the day, and she's an author. She's got a huge platform in the organizing space, and it's my friend Jennifer Ford-Berry. And Jennifer, if you don't know her, she's going to come out and talk about herself a little bit and give us her background. She is a best-selling author. Her series, the Organize Now series, again, you can buy it wherever you want, is phenomenal to help people get and stay motivated to be organized. And she's a new book that was recently released called Make Room, Take Control of Your Space, Time, Energy, and Money to Live on Purpose. And I love everything that she does. So I invited her to come back on our show to talk all about what she's been up to, about her new book, Who's It For, and help you continue to stay inspired to live your best life. So without further ado, let me welcome my friend Jennifer back to the show.
Thank you, Laurie. I'm so excited to be back.
I am excited to have you here. So I know we are, I was just recording an episode to be on your show. You've gone through a huge rebranding. Some of our listeners might know you from the 29-minute mom, right? Was that what the name of the?
Yes.
And now you've rebranded your podcast to be the Make Room Show, correct?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that and the stuff that you've been up to. But before we get into all those things, just tell our listeners a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I've been doing this whole organizing gig for almost literally right around 20 years, because my daughter was a baby and now she's 21. So it's like one of those situations where if someone would have told me this when I graduated college, I would have been like, get out of here. What are you talking about? I'm going to be, in corporate America, working for these big companies, not working for myself, was never on my radar. But after I tried that route, I was not fulfilled. I was not content. And I knew every day when I woke up that life was feeling like just that movie Groundhog's Day. That's literally how I felt. And I thought, I'm young. Like, I can't spend the rest of my career feeling this way. There has to be more to this. I have to wake up feeling excited if I'm going to go to work every day for the next, 30, 40 years. And so I started doing like a deep dive into myself of like, what am I passionate about? I remember that was like the number one question I kept asking myself. And I won't bore you with all the, the inner journey, but I got to a point where I realized I was born to organize. I always have loved to do it. It's something that comes easy for me. It brings me joy and happiness. It helps me feel like I'm doing something positive for somebody else. And I always joke that I was like the kid that wanted to clean her room. Like who, I was like that kid. And I was the kid that would go into people's houses, like my family, and say, what can I organize? And they're like, sure, go for it. So it kept going, and it snowballed into a little tiny newsletter that turned out to be my first book, Organized Now, which turned into this is like my 5th book. And now
My gosh, I'm so impressed because writing
crazy.
books are hard. Well, for me, they're hard.
So time consuming. But this has been like, there's been like a 3 or 4 year break from writing. So this is my first book in like 3 or 4 years, because I did get burnt out in all, with all honesty, because they kept asking me to do one after the other. And now I'm doing online coaching, which is really fun and interesting and helps me have a little more freedom, but I'm still working one-on-one with people in their homes. And that is just such great research for all the online programs and the books. And it truly is something that I don't think I would ever get sick of, just making an impact in a person's life. And, you and I have talked on my show of just how we have a bigger why for doing this work. And that's what drives me every single day. I no longer feel like it's Groundhog's Day.
Yeah. And I love this because for so many reasons, as you and I have talked about before, we our community of listeners and people that watch us on YouTube are a mix of people who crave organizing strategies because they don't have them intuitively. People that are kind of like organizing junkies like us that really get jazzed up about that and see these as a challenge. And yes, I can solve this almost like a puzzle. And then also entrepreneurs who might either be doing this or thinking about doing this or wondering how they could turn their own passion into a profession. And so I love everything that you're saying because it kind of touches on all the different points. And again, we've spoken about the evolution of the organizing industry since you and I started as our OGs of like just how it's evolved. And I just love the fact that you're able to do online coaching. And I know a lot of our other professional organizers out there are thinking, they have, whether it's digital courses or virtual organizing, that we're able to serve people in so many different modalities than exclusively just being in their home.
Yes, it's so funny. First of all, when you say OG, I crack up because does that mean like we're old now?
I think we're just like the originals. I don't know.
Serious.
I just, yeah.
We're wise. Like we're gonna spin that in a positive way, right? But I think it's kind of cool that we're on the other side of this because you've talked with me before. When we started, this was not a thing. So this has grown to be a major thing and a major industry. But I feel like now being able to help people, even if I'm not in their home, is pretty amazing. And I just got to a point where I'm like, okay, I want to help even more people learn this lifestyle because it's so, so important. And the fastest, easiest way to do that is through the internet. And so I just feel lucky that I'm living in a time where I can do that, because it would be very expensive to fly me in to do all these homes, right? And now, as long as you're willing to learn, I'll teach you everything I know and you can do it yourself. And that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. And I love that. And I want to talk a little bit about, because you've been very vocal, which I love, about looking at the work that you do from a mission perspective. And obviously you and I have talked offline, and I know that you have a deep faith perspective. We have a lot of listeners of that kind of run the gamut, but not that you need to have a specific faith perspective to follow your work or do the things that you're doing. But I think that's a large part of kind of your brand. And I just love for you to just kind of share a little bit about that and how that's gotten you to, your philosophy about living the life that you feel like you were meant to live. Because I think it's pivotal to what differentiates you from maybe different other approaches.
Absolutely. First of all, I firmly believe every single person is sent here with their own unique mission. And I think that it is, your personality is a part of it. The skills you have, the things that come easy to you, like for you and I, it would be organizing, but everybody has something like that. But I also feel like society is constantly bombarding us with messages, and those are cluttering up our minds and our eyes and our ears. And so sometimes we lose what our true purpose is. We can't even see it. We can't hear it. We're just so busy trying to survive every day. And we're also so busy trying to take care of all the stuff that we own. And, and maybe we don't even want to own that much stuff. Most of my clients want to pare down, but there's huge marketing campaigns and huge social media campaigns every day coming into your world saying, you need this, you need that. This will make you prettier. This will make you healthier. This will make you skinnier. This will make you more successful. And they're doing a really good job. That's why they get paid those big bucks to do it. And we believe it. We believe that if we're waking up feeling discontented, much like I was back in the day, when I knew that I wasn't in the right field and I wasn't living with purpose, I was trying to fill that void with other things. I was trying to fill that void with the stuff, and it never worked. And I say this all the time, but I get to work in really amazing homes that if you pulled up into the driveway, you'd think this woman has it all. She must be so happy and so content. Her home is gorgeous on the outside. The cars are in the driveway. It's packed with all the things, and she's no more content because of it. She's actually more overwhelmed because of it, because stuff does not bring you intention, or it does not bring you true contentment or joy or anything or peace, none of it. And so,
No, go ahead. I was going to say something, but finish. Yeah.
If you don't believe me, think about the last time you went to Target to grab a couple things and you wanted to get in and out the door in 10 minutes. And next thing you know, you're going through that first little area that's all $5 and less, and it's very seasonal, and it's very geared toward what women are thinking and feeling in that time of year. Maybe it's Halloween, maybe it's spring. Right now there's all the pastel colors. There might be some cute Easter things or organizing containers, something that screams spring cleaning. And next thing you know, you leave Target with a cart full and you're feeling pretty happy, right? You're freaking happy and ready to go. But that joy doesn't last for years, or sometimes not even past getting it out of the car and putting it in your house.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why people call it retail therapy, right? Like you're trying to fill this void with stuff, and it is short-lived, and it's shallow. And again, I'm not anti-shopping. I'm not telling people don't go just shopping, and neither are you. But again, it's trying to use stuff to fill that void, or to lift you up, or to think that that is going to solve something. And then I don't know about you, but then you see the aftermath of that, where you're like, great, this didn't solve my problem. Now I have stuff. Now I've spent money. Now I have decision fatigue because I have to figure out how I'm going to store this or what I'm going to do with this. And it adds on to an additional layer of issues. And so, again, I think our goal, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is really to have people find meaning outside of the things.
Yes, 100%. Because every single thing you own takes up some amount of space, time, energy, and money.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you can get back, those are 4 really, really important resources in your life that you can get back to use and spend that on something very like a purpose, right? Getting up every day, having more time and energy to fulfill a purpose, or having more space for the people that you love in your home, having more time to spend with those people that you love, having more time for yourself, doing things that actually make you happy. Maybe you wish you had more time to read a book or go for a run or walk your dog, but the stuff requires responsibility. It really does. And so we want to figure out a way of basically to me, clutter is anything that is preventing you're getting in the way of you living your most fulfilling, purposeful life. And so you need to start deciding what aligns with the life I want to live and what doesn't. And if it doesn't, it's clutter and it needs to go.
So what do you say to somebody that's listening out there that says, I don't really know my purpose? Like right now, maybe I'm somebody that is drowning in the weeds with littles at home, and all I'm doing is like diaper, feed, rinse, repeat. Or maybe I am somebody who is in a similar boat to us, where now we're entering like the empty nesting stage, and you're like, okay, my life has been defined by X, Y, and Z, and now that season of life is coming to an end and a changing. I think for a lot of people, specifically women, there is this like existential, I don't even know what my purpose is, right? Like you have a clarity. I feel like I have a clarity of, how I can serve the world. But for a lot of people that don't have that, where do they go to begin to find it?
Well, it's an awesome question. And it's exactly why I wrote the book, because I walk people through the process. And I've seen with working with woman after woman where we declutter and we get things in order and we streamline their home and we make their home easier to maintain, all of a sudden that brain fog starts to lift, that energy starts to increase. And now they're back when they were a young woman, where they remember how to imagine possibilities and daydream and ask themselves, like, what do I want? What do I want this life to look like? Because your life can look any way you want it to look. You have to start driving the car and stop being in the passenger seat or even the back seat. You have to decide where you want to go and how you want to use this time, this precious resource we all have been given. How are we using it? And it seems sometimes overwhelming. Like if you're at ground zero and you have no idea what your purpose is and you want to get to your purpose, my advice to you is to start journaling, start daydreaming, start giving yourself 10 minutes in the morning to imagine what it could look like and start to create this vision, which is basically like taking a canvas, like the painting behind me, and deciding I'm going to really get specific on what this picture of my life is going to look like for this season. I don't think we need to figure out our entire life, Laurie. I think we need to figure out the season we're in. And like you mentioned, I'm going to be an empty nester next year. I started to get really sad about that a couple of months ago. And I thought, I have two choices. I can either be sad, and when, my baby, the youngest, leaves, I can really be in the doldrums, or I can embrace this new season and start to get excited. And that's when I rebranded, because I asked myself, what do I want? I practice what I preach. So I stopped and I said, I can make this season look like anything. What do I want it to be? I gave myself many days to think and journal and pray and debate. And then I took action. And you know what? Who knows? I mean, you're never going to know how it turns out, but taking action gives you that feeling that you are driving the car and you are in control.
I love it. And so if somebody's out there and says, okay, I want to start doing this with whatever season, obviously there's so many different approaches and schools of thought to kind of like tactically where to start, right?
Mhm.
Where do you start the decluttering process, right? Because I think, again, like you said, it's so much easier when you have a blank canvas, right? When you declutter your closet and you go, let me imagine what I want to add back in, is so much better than or easier than trying to navigate through all of the minutia.
Mhm.
So what are give us a few different tips, if you will, that you might say if somebody's listening that says, I want to start, like I've been kind of on this hamster wheel. I've been going through Groundhog's Day. I'm not happy where I am. I want to make a change.
Yeah. First, get some sort of accountability. I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's why there are coaches. That's why there are programs, because when I wanted to level up my business, what did I do? I got a business coach that would help me level up my business, because there was things that I needed to learn that I didn't know. And I believe we're all experts on something. And I'm like the biggest fan of, you want to learn something, go to the expert that's already done it and she'll teach you how to do it. It saves a lot of time and energy. So that gives you accountability. And if you have accountability, you will start doing it instead of just dreaming about it, wishing, wanting, and hoping someday it happens. Number two is get very, very serious about planning out your time, because this is how things happen. This is when you look at someone's life and you see this life over here and you're like, man, they made a difference. They made an impact. They made people feel good. They helped people. They did this and that. And then you see somebody else that didn't. It's how they used their time. And so it's planning out your time, getting very specific, putting boundaries around your time. I love, this is one of my favorite things at the beginning of the year. I take the week and I use colored time blocks as what I want my week to look like. Instead of letting life dictate what it looks like, And then I fill in the information based on, okay, here's a time block for working out. And I don't even call it working out. I call it healthy living, and it's green. And that can be reading my Bible. It could be working out on the elliptical. It could be taking my dog for a walk. It's all the things. It could be massage. But I'm going to make sure that I put something in there, because that's how you know you're living a balanced life. You're taking care of all the things. Then I'll have family time, work time, all the stuff. And if you ask me if I can do something during one of those time blocks, I'm 100% fine with saying the word NO if I don't want to do it and it doesn't align with my priorities. So get very clear on your priorities. And then when it comes to the actual organizing, like the physical organizing, you need to shrink it down. Like, you need to narrow in on the tiniest spots and do not move on until you complete it from beginning to end. Because I think a lot of times people get pumped up. They'll hear like an episode like this or go to a retreat or a conference. They're like, yes, I'm going to get home and this weekend I'm going to organize the whole house. It doesn't work that way. I don't want to pop your bubble, but it literally does not work that way. You need to think about this as a marathon and training. So small, tiny, micro organizing, and maybe it's the kitchen drawer, 2 kitchen drawers while you're cooking dinner, and you set a timer for 20 minutes. And when the timer goes off, you're done. You did something to move the needle. And then tomorrow you can do 2 cupboards. And next, when the kitchen's completely done, you can go to the laundry room. But you can't just have that squirrel mentality where you're like doing a little here and a little there. That doesn't work, because that way, when we just touch it a little bit, it never gets fully erased off our to-do list.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, if people are longtime listeners of our show, they're like, it's like listening to me, because it's a very similar philosophy and approach about staying focused on the area. And understandably so, for some people, that's harder to do. Like, you're naturally be like, I want to do a little bit here and I want to do a little bit here. But then you're spending, 10 hours across 10 different spots, as opposed to saying, I'm going to focus in this one particular area and go deep and really be able to check that off the list and start to have that progress. I love everything that you said. And I'm a big time blocker as well. And really taking ownership. Absolutely. I mean, and again, and we're going to touch on this because I think it's a really important part of the equation, which is about finances. But whenever I talk about time blocking and building in that margin for your own healthy living, I love how you approach that, where you're like, it could look a little bit different. It could be I'm taking a walk. It could be I'm going to the gym. It could be that I'm just reading a book or reading the Bible or whatever it is, that I'm, catching up with a friend, whatever it looks like to you, to build that time in. Because just like when you talk about, saving money, if you wait till the reserves are left over, there's never anything left over. Yep. There just never is. There's always a fire to be put out. There's always something else that's going to hop up on your to-do list. So if you're not proactive in carving out and prioritizing those things that are important to you, they just won't happen. They're just not going to. I don't mean to be a cynic. That's how I feel. Like, you have to put them on there.
Yeah, 100%. It's like the law. This is how it works.
Yeah.
It's the same for everybody.
And it also gives me, I don't know if you feel this way, but when I allocate my time and I say, I'm going to be focusing in, like, for me, my mornings are kind of like the time where I will read, chill out, like, just to have a little bit slower time. And then will also make like personal phone calls if we have to make a doctor appointment or take the car in to get service. Then I move into work mode. I have work mode. And then after that, it like shifts into a different area. And then I also do a lot of volunteer work. And so I have certain pockets of my day or of my week that are dedicated to that. So when something comes in, whether it's an email or a phone call or something, I know, unless it's something that is urgently time sensitive, I know exactly where and when to respond to that, as opposed to getting sucked in and going, I know that I'll address this, but I'll address it at 4:00 when that is my time to do that. And it gives me permission to say, I don't have to respond to this right now because I know when I will.
Absolutely. And it's less mental clutter because I
Yes.
think people want to do all the things right now because they're afraid they'll forget because they don't have a system that's efficient. They don't have a time
Yes.
management system. You and I have a time management system. So we know when we're doing what. We know when we're answering emails and phone calls. We're not afraid that if we don't do it this second, we'll forget because we already have a time block.
Such a good point, because I think fear is a really big thing for people. And it is, if you have a solid system, and I'm not saying that my system's right or your system's right, but I think if you have a consistent system that you continually maintain and stick with it, that's the key differentiator. I don't care if you do it on your phone, if you do it in a paper planner, as long as it's something that you are continually doing. I think that is really what makes the hugest difference in the world. Do you
I
agree?
agree. And honestly, Laura, by saying it that way, it makes me think of all the systems, like all the systems for clothes, system for groceries when they come in, how to put your groceries away so you're not eating, letting things go to waste, or gift buying, holiday time. The more organized you are, the more systems you have for maintenance, and that makes life easier. It just does, because you know what you're doing. Okay, this is where I put my baking ingredients. So you just do it on autopilot. You're not going in and shoving everything into your pantry when you get home from the grocery store. And then it comes time to bake a cake and you have like 3 different areas to look in. You know where to look.
I think it comes down, for me, when you're just talking, it comes to that intentionality piece. It's doing things with intention, or as you say, doing it on purpose. And when you have that level of intentionality in these specific areas or in any area of your life, that's when things tend to happen, be more productive, and you have a more proactive role in it as opposed to being reactive. Because again, so many of us are just living on autopilot because our lives are either overscheduled or we just have too much on our plate or whatever the reason is. And when you can start to take that proactive approach, I always tell people, we all have systems either by design or by default. They could be poor systems, right?
Yeah.
Like your system might be a hot mess, but we all have patterns that we follow. And if you're going to have them either way, I would rather see somebody take a proactive approach to it and create the system that they want, as opposed to being like, yeah, our system is, we don't plan for dinner. And then at 6 o'clock, we're all starving and we just grab whatever or order out all the time because, that's our plan.
And then a faulty system like that bleeds into another faulty system. So now you're eating out all the time. You're not organizing and managing your money. And it's like, and then also that bleeds to more mental clutter because you feel guilt and shame and you feel like you just can't get ahead. So it just keeps on going.
It's a hamster wheel.
Yeah. Not to mention going out to dinner every night would rob you of a lot of time from being away from home. So it just keeps on going.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes because one of the things that you talk about in the book is about the purpose for money. And it's an area that I'm super passionate about as well, about people, again, taking control of their finances, not having financial clutter. I've expanded on I have my 3 core types of clutter that I talk about: physical, emotional, calendar. I still think those are the 3 main buckets, but then you have digital clutter, financial clutter, the mental clutter, which is, all that mental load of things that we are struggling with carrying every day. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you approach the financial clutter and disorganization and the impact that has for our listeners.
Well, first of all, you have to face your clutter. And I find with financial clutter, a lot of people don't want to face it. They don't really dig into it and look at it and get an honest snapshot of what it is, because it's scary and it's fearful and you feel lack usually, and so what do? You just avoid it. And then it grows, that debt grows. And I talk about in the book, I am, it's all about 10 P principles. And one of the P principles is practicing stewardship. So I believe I think, why should you be asking for more money if you're not taking proper care and responsibility of the money you currently have? And if you can't keep the money you have now organized and have an efficient system for that, you're not going to be able to handle more money. You're just not. And so you have to be really careful of being grateful for the little or the lot, whatever you have now. You have to, I don't care if you see a quarter on the sidewalk, don't just kick it away. I mean, it's money, and that energy and the gratitude of it will be a life change for you. So you need to get a system. I can't believe how many people I work with, Laurie, that don't have a budget. Like a budget.
Don't even get me started on that.
We could have a whole episode. I mean, we should have a whole episode about organizing money, because it's.
Can we do like a webinar? Can we do like a webinar about it?
I mean, we really should. And because you're passionate about it and I'm passionate about it, it's like I remember, and here's the truth. I remember when I first left my corporate job and started my organizing business. And then I was doing really well in Charlotte. And then we moved back to where we were from. And everybody, like back then, they're like, what's a professional organizer? So I'm like, this is going to take a hot minute to grow this. So I went back to corporate America. And then when I had my second child, I decided I didn't have anybody like I felt comfortable leaving with him. So I quit my job. And at the time I was the breadwinner. We were new back to the state. And I told my husband, nobody's watching this baby. I'm quitting my job. And his face was like in shock. So I remember putting my groceries on my credit card a couple of times. Like I was so ashamed and I was so upset, but I just stuck with it because to me, it was more important to be with my kids. And that's when my organizing business really took off, because it had to, right? I had to focus on it. So I understand not wanting to look at your bank statements or your credit card statements. I get it. But you can take your power back if you get your money organized and having some sort of system, just like you would with a physical item and putting it into containers. Your money needs to be allocated to, categories of your budget, which think of them as a container, right? So this amount of money goes in this container every month. This goes in this, if you've ever used the envelope system, my husband and I practiced Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace for years. I still do cash and envelopes when I can, and I just love it. But it's like, it basically tells me, just like with the time blocks, it says, I decide what goes in this time block. I decide what goes in this cash envelope. I decide where my money goes. And that makes me feel calm and in control, rather than the days where I was like, where the hell is that money going? Or where'd all our money go? Like, I didn't know. Now I know.
And it's hard. It's easy, but it's hard to practice. And I'm like, again, come from the same exact perspective as you. And I know when it's hard to look in the mirror. Like if you've ever kept a food diary, people, like if you've ever kept a food diary and you're like, and then you write it down and you're like, yeah, I graze those M&Ms. I finish the chicken nuggets. I fill in the blank, right? Like we've all done some level of that.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about your finances and you're like, I don't spend that much money. I just stopped at Starbucks and it spent $5.35. And then I went through the drive-through and I just got this and whatever it is. And I'm not here to shame anybody, but it's that, again, it's that accountability and that intentionality. And once you can face that in the mirror and you can fill in the blank for shopping, you can fill in the blank for, whether it's clothes shopping or going to Home Goods and going to Target off the dollar, aisle. All of these things, they add up to different buckets of clutter. And that's what you talk about. And that's what I talk about. And to me, I find it's more like death by a thousand cuts. It's not the one thing that broke the bank. It's not the one thing that set your pantry or closet into overload, or that one thing that set your calendar into a tizzy. It's all of these habits or poor, patterns of behavior that have led you to this place of overwhelm.
Yeah. And overwhelm is the number one word I hear. And
yeah.
I'm sure you hear the same thing. But the cool thing is, even if you don't know how to do it today, you can learn. And just the fact of deciding to make a change and starting to get your life organized does start to fire you up. You will see, you could physically see the change, right? And it's like that teaches you that if I could get this organized, if I could get rid of this credit card bill, if I could do these things, then you can do it all. You just have to stay consistent and stay motivated. But when it comes to the money getting organized, that is a huge form of clutter. And we know clutter weighs us down. And it's just like dragging a suitcase around packed with bricks your whole entire life. To me, that's visually what I see clutter as. And so you can decide, I'm going to get rid of this brick. I'm going to get rid of that brick. And you can make that journey lighter, but you have to see the big why in it. And you have to realize that you're delaying the gratification by not starting.
Well, and also the different types of clutter are all intertwined, right? The less you shop mindlessly, I'm not saying, again, if you need to go shopping, but like the more that you can be intentional about your shopping, the more fiscally responsible you're going to be, the more money you're going to have in your bank account, the less debt you're going to be in. So they're all related. And then again, the more that you are aware of your finances, the less you're going to just spend or go shopping just without, because you know that you are trying to reach a goal. So whether the financial is the driver, whether it's my closet's filled with clutter and that's the driver, they all interrelate. And so once you start building momentum in one area, I feel like it's so much easier to gain momentum in the other areas.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And you can make it a fun game. Like you can make this really fun. I know people are probably like, wait, this isn't going to be fun, but think about it. If I've always had a spreadsheet going of like, the old debt snowball. So I've always watched, if you buy something and you want to get it paid off, you can figure out ways to pay it off quicker by selling clutter. Like we all have these things in our house we don't need that you could, I don't care if it's $10 here and $10 there, that can really put a dent in your financial, you can cut away a big snowball of debt with getting rid of clutter. So you're benefiting in two different ways. And you can think about it with, weight gain is a big form of clutter. I was actually teaching a presentation last night to a group of women that were in a weight loss program. And I was explaining how excess weight is a form of clutter. It's getting between you and your best life, and you have to shed it, right? Just like we have to shed all these other forms of clutter, but it's a step-by-step process, and you have to stick with it until you see results. Once you see results, I feel like then you start to get more excited. It's like,
100. It's like I say that all the time. I always say, I wish if I knew if I was going to start this, whatever weight loss program, if I could have a crystal ball to say, if you stick with this in 10 weeks, here's the progress that you're going to have. I wish I had a crystal ball to show my clients, because again, so many people are out there listening that are like, I've tried and I've been unsuccessful. I've tried and I've quit. I've tried and something unexpected has come up in my life to be a roadblock, a hurdle, make it difficult. And like, I get it. And you get that. And I think what the message is, it's the just getting back up, trying to just pick an area. Don't try to do it all. Pick an area and just start with those small, actionable things that are going to help you build that momentum.
Absolutely. And one of the things I really encourage people to do, if you're just like, because you know what happens, they'll want to organize something. Let's say like the kitchen cabinets, just let's say that. And there's so many things in there. So for you and I, our brain sees the project done. Like we see the potential, and we know, okay, we see the puzzle over here is done. So now I know where to put what pieces, right? But people that aren't doing this for a living and they're not doing it every day and they don't have this much expertise, they just see a bunch of puzzle pieces and they're just like, I don't know how to put these together. I don't know what fits what. So you know what? Have less puzzle pieces. Okay. Yep. Try it simply. Get a big bin, throw in everything that you don't use every single week and put it in there, and get the cupboards how you ideally want them to look, where they're just simple. It's easy to put the dishes away out of the dishwasher. It looks nice. You'll know when you get there, because you'll have this feeling of like, aha, that looks good. And then live without the stuff in the bin for a couple of weeks. It can be that simple.
And can I add to that also? If you're somebody that really like struggles with that vision, right? You're like, my brain doesn't work like that, right? That's just not how my brain works.
Right.
That's okay. Get somebody, whether it's a professional organizer whether it's asking a friend who's got a different perspective. Like there's so many ways that you can, like, I am not an overly like artistic person, or I'm not musical, but like there are things that I'm like, I know that I might want something that I don't have that intuitively within myself. That's just not how my brain is wired. And so if I'm trying to get something that's in that area, I will ask for help, whether a professional or just somebody in my network of people who do have that skill that can help me, because we are all unique and we all have certain gifts. And some of us just, not that this isn't a learned skill, because I do believe that organizing is a learned skill. It just comes easier to some people than others.
I 100% agree. I think I was laughing because you're like, I'm not necessarily artsy or musically inclined. I'm like, me either. My brain sees order, And so everybody has their gifts, and we need to, and there's somebody in your life that loves this like we do. Like somebody
Right.
listening, look around, ask around, because you don't have to do it by yourself. And then maybe there's something, maybe you love gardening and you can help your girlfriend garden.
Right.
Organize your house.
That's such a good one, because I had, like, for years, I had like a black thumb. I was like, don't bring your living plant here. I can keep a kid alive, but a plant, that's a whole other ball game. Tell our listeners, I mean, obviously we could talk about this all day long. I love the stuff that you do, because there's so many parallels in just our approach, the way that we teach. And really you're about lifting people up. And I just love that, really trying to help people, even if you don't love clutter, you don't love organizing, what we all know is clutter holds us back from living our best lives. And that's, I think, what you want to convey to your people is, don't let clutter stand in the way of living the life that you were meant to be.
Exactly. And nobody's going to remember you for how many shoes you owned. Like, no, that doesn't count. The stuff doesn't, no, you've never talked about stuff that people owned when they pass on. They talk about how you made them feel, the times you spent together, the memories that were created, how they helped other people. It's never about the stuff, because, I really think it's so profound to remind ourselves that we come in empty-handed and we leave empty-handed. So why are we breaking our backs for all this stuff? And I say that living in a home that has things I love. I mean, you and I are not minimalists. I think sometimes people think, oh, you must be a minimalist, you don't love stuff. No, I'm very particular about what stuff I have around me. And so, and when it doesn't serve me anymore, I'm very willing to have an open hand and let it go. And one thing I want to say, Laurie, is that in the book, another P is privilege giving, because I truly believe with the amount of stuff, and you can attest to that we see in people's closets and basements and attics that's not being touched or used, it's not loved or used. There's no reason why anybody in this country should be going without anything else. It's just, we have to get in the closet and pass it on. And so I feel like if you need an extra dose of motivation, look around your local community and tie your heart to some nonprofit that needs the stuff that you're not using. And I'm definitely not I'm all about the little guys, like the little small nonprofits, the domestic violence programs, the Habitats for Humanity, Goodwill and Salvation Army get everything. They don't need more help. It's really these little mom and pops that are, even your local school nurse. They need clothes for those kids. Kids have accidents. They need more clothes. Or the foster families. I mean,
I was going to say, I believe if you look in your local neighborhoods, your local, just Google, even if you don't know them, there's somebody that's creating backpacks for kids that in foster care that getting put, or you said so SPCA, taking old linens or blankets and towels for the animals.
Nobody knows
Yeah.
what to do with stuffed animals. Or like, I also own a consignment event. And so I see these
Oh,
charities
right. You
that
do that
need
big
this
consignment
stuff.
event.
Yeah. And it's so cool because they need everything from home goods to baby equipment to clothes, shoes, hats, mittens, everything. We fill up truckloads, and it's because these families that they first sold their stuff to get some money and pay off their bills and things like that, or afford what they need for the next season. And then after that, they let it go to charity. And I believe that the more we have just these open hands, the more will come to you also. But you can't let go of things with a clenched fist and fear of living like, maybe this could happen. What if I need it? What if this? What if that? You can't be like that. You just have to be like, blessed and goodbye. And if I need it again, I'll find it.
And that's it. And the other thing I say on top of that is the money's already been spent, right? The money's already been spent, whether it's, you know what, I don't wear those jeans or those shoes anymore. Or, you know what, I bought this whatever thing for the kitchen and I thought I would use it and I really don't. And it's just taking up space. What, fill in the blank. We all have these things. And the money's, it's gone, right? So now, are you going to keep this as a reminder? Are you continue to berate yourself for having this thing that is not serving you and have it take up space? Or can you just, again, let it go, pay it forward, let it serve somebody else? And I think, again, there's so many reasons. We talk about guilt. We talk about, the shame. We talk about all of the different reasons that hold us back from, us, that fear. What if I need it again? All these things that hold us back from letting things go. And when you really can just make peace about that, it just gives you a freedom and a levity to just make decisions and have that almost permission, like feeling like I have permission to let this go.
Absolutely. And let me ask you a question, just because I'm curious, and I know that I have not experienced this, so I'm wondering, how many times have you seen somebody that owns like a collection of something where they keep it because it's worth money or it's going to be worth something someday? How many times have you seen that actually happen?
But where that actually turns into something with money?
It turns into money.
Oh, I don't think I've ever had anybody. Now, I will say, I don't deal with resale. So in my experience, like, I am not an expert in things. So if you did have a collection of some like particular china that was, and I'm not talking about, no offense, people, I'm not talking about your Lenox china that you got but I'm saying like something that's like a really high end or some antique or whatever that really is. I would refer a client that really had something that was truly valuable to somebody that was like an antique specialist or reseller in that particular area. Cause I don't know, like I'm a commoner. But I will say, more often than not, most people think their stuff is worth more than it is. Again, that collection of Beanie Babies, the collection of Barbies, the collection. And again, I don't want to ever be responsible to say, yeah, I don't think you need to hold on to the box for the American Girl doll. But if you really, what is your space worth to you? And that's what I always try to tell people. Also, what is your space worth?
And what's your time worth? Because to
that's
go
it.
out and hunt for top dollar for these items is very time consuming.
Yes.
But I've also seen many, many, many collections when we've gotten to a point where the house is being sold or the person's passed on or there's an estate sale, and these collections where they've poured tons and tons of money into it are not worth much, especially nowadays because we live in a more disposable society. I mean, we
talk about that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So be careful if you're thinking, I'm going to hang on to all these things because they're worth money. Well, they're not worth, money does not go into your bank account if you don't find someone that will trade you the item for money.
Yeah.
So it being worth money is fictitious in your mind unless you actually find someone that will pay you those dollars. And so if you're not willing to do all the work and put the effort in, I had a client one time who had an entire room designated to porcelain dolls. There was thousands, Laurie.
That's
Thousands.
creepy. That's a little
It was
creepy.
creepy. And she had tons of receipts. We couldn't even give them away.
Yeah.
I found a porcelain doll museum and they took like 5.
Wow.
And it was like this whole entire room was dedicated to it. And I can't even imagine the money. All I can say is I hope it brought her a lot of joy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Tell our listeners, before we take our last break, tell our listeners if they want to learn either about your online coaching, buy the book, listen to your show, just like where is the best place for them to go to connect up with you?
The book is called Make Room. And it's on every, normal ways you can buy books. And then I have my website, jenniferfordberry.com. All my Instagram, Facebook, everything is Jennifer Ford Berry. Ford like the truck, berry like the fruit. So it's Berry. And then now there's courses, programs. I work one-on-one with people. I do a group coaching program called the Created Order Neighborhood, where we meet every week. And I have like self-paced courses, so they can do all that. And we are I'm one of the co-founders of a retreat coming up this fall called the Focus Retreat. So if you go to thefocusretreat.com, registration is going to open up to the public on April 1st. So
yeah, I saw it. It's at like some beautiful, was it like a farm? I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh.
Village in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. And it's so serene. And so if you're just feeling like overwhelmed, like you need to get away and spend some time focusing and trying to figure out what your purpose is, right?
Yeah.
Then this is the event for that.
Awesome. Well, we'll of course link to all things Jennifer Ford Berry in our show notes on our podcast page. So don't worry about writing it all down. We got you covered. We're going to take a quick break. Come back, put you in our hot seat for a wrap-up question. So sit tight. All right, Jennifer. So of course, it's always a pleasure having you on our show. Your enthusiasm and knowledge and wisdom is just infectious. And I love sharing all the things that you're doing with our people. So on that note, we know that you've inspired a lot of people in this particular, like where you are in your life. Is there a book that you've read or either that you come back to or something that you're currently reading that's really been kind of transformational, or something that you just want to share with our listeners for them to go and say, hey, I think this has really been a game changer for me?
So I have gotten like even more into mindset than I've ever been in my life because, I'm just at that point in my life where I have big goals. And like we mentioned, my kids are going off and I have things that I might have more time for than I didn't used to have time for. But there's this little book by Nicole Crank called Goal Getters. And basically this is the gist of it. And I have been doing this for probably 3 years, I think. It's basically taught me to every morning write down the 5 goals that I'm working towards currently in my life and writing them down as if they're already happening. So instead of saying, I want to to be more fit and tone, you write it out like, I am living a fit and healthy lifestyle. So your brain doesn't know the difference, right? So the more you write it and the more you're reading it, your brain's like, oh, I'm living a fit and healthy lifestyle. And what happens is you start to embody the person that you're becoming, right? Because you tell yourself that every morning. So you don't want to not act like that person, because it's not like someday I'm going to be a fit and healthy person. No, I am right now, today. And a fit and healthy person takes her butt to the gym, and a fit and healthy person doesn't eat ice cream every single night, only 2 nights a week. That's like my favorite thing in the world.
I love this because you can apply it for people that are struggling with clutter. You could say, I live an organized life. Yeah. And what are the things that somebody who lives an organized life does? They don't buy things mindlessly. They don't, they let go of things when they don't need them anymore. So I love this because you can apply it.
And I just actually, Laurie, did an episode, I think it was last week or the week before, how to embody an organized person. So
I love that.
It's like, and you can do this with anything. If you're trying to level up with money, and you decide, okay, I want to get to this level of income. What does that girl look like? How does she behave? What does she talk like? How does she dress? How does she behave? How does she treat others? How does she, what does her home look like? How is she a steward? Things like that. So it just is so empowering. And what's really cool is when it really happens, because you've wrote it out for so long, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is my reality now. And so I'll go back and highlight, and then I'll replace it, because I always do 5. I'll replace it with a new one. And it's just you're always evolving.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think that's super. I think it's again another way to help keep you accountable, help keep you motivated, help really just having that tangible accountability, like by writing it down, which I love. All right.
Yeah.
Last two questions. Last two questions in this particular season of your life. And I know this is going to be tough, but I'd like to ask this question for organizers because, again, we're not picture perfect. So there are areas where we struggle. Right now in this season of your life, where do you feel the most organized, but also where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
All right. So first of all, hot mess.
Yeah.
I will freely admit right now is photos.
Oh.
Because I'm planning for a graduation party this summer. And I feel like I take way too many photos. And I was more organized when I printed them out back in the day. They were all in photo albums. And
we
now
just released a whole episode on digital clutter today. It dropped, people, because it's true. It's invisible clutter. Like it's on your phone, and before you know it, you've got like 10,000 pictures.
And I'm just so sick of every device telling me like, oh, you're getting close to the limit. And I'm like, I don't have time to I don't want to get rid of my photos right now, but I know I'll be handling it because I need to do a slideshow and all the things for this grad party. But I feel like there needs to be a better something. We got to put our heads together, Laurie, and figure out like a new, simple program or device for photos, because we're all drowning in these digital photos.
Well, one of the things that I want, and somebody's going to just take this and run with it, and I have no, here, Godspeed. But how your devices will like identify if you've got like a duplicate contact and be like, do you want to merge the contact? I want them to take like, you have 6 copies of the same picture, but like what? And I want it to just AI like recognize which one is the best one of all, where people are like, this one's not looking, what's that?
So this is the only product I've found that will actually do that. So it's already been developed.
I'm just late to the party.
You guys are going to all love me when this freaking company should love me right now. But
yeah, really.
The photo stick, they send you this for your computer.
Okay.
They send you this. Look they're all different. They'll fit into like all different.
Yeah.
And it basically takes it and it like gathers all your photos.
Yeah.
And then it will be running and it will tell you which ones are duplicates and do you want to erase them. So even with this little guy.
Do you use it?
Yes, I do. But I still, it will gather them and it will get rid of duplicates, but I still need to make sure I put them in the right folders, because if you think about a photo album, it's like, okay, this is our 2022. Like you still have to do that digitally. You have to know how to find the photos.
Well, I do that every year. It's like a project. I do it at that every year.
Well, aren't you the best organizer? I have done it some years, Laurie, and other years I'm like, yeah, I'll do that someday. But yeah, this is why my photos, I don't feel like are up to par.
Oh God.
For what I do for a living.
That's so
better. Yeah.
I got it. All right. But let's end on a high note, because we know that you have it together in like 99% of your life. So of the amazing areas that you are organized, where do you feel like you're really thriving?
I feel like I'm really thriving with my time management, because I get stuff done. Like I set my mind to something and I do it. I water it down into the smaller steps and I figure out a plan. And like I said, with the system I use for my time, I mean, that was a little snippet of how I do my time management.
Sure.
But I feel like I am in control of my time. And if you're in control of your time, then you can do anything. You can do any organizing project. You can build any business. You can write any book. You can create the family you want. I mean, really, 24 hours, we're all gifted to us equally. It's what we do with that matters. So
I love it. That's a perfect place to end. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming back on our show. Thanks for all that you do for people out there, helping them find their purpose, get rid of the unnecessary in their lives. And I appreciate you. So thanks so much. And if this is your first time tuning into our show, you picked a good one. So welcome. Make sure that you click the subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening. We're also on YouTube if you prefer to watch our episodes. New episodes are dropped now twice a week. Mondays are our tip of the week and Thursdays are our regular episode. You can follow us on social media, Simply Be Organized, or This Organized Life podcast, whichever you prefer. And that's it. So until next week, I'm Laurie Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.